All right. How's it looking?
There you go.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm honored to have you all come into my session here. We've had some great sessions through the rest of this afternoon here and some great presenters. And I'm excited that you all are taking some of your precious time as the moderator for me. So she'll be monitoring the chat today. She'll be also helping us with some of the question and answer, as well as the poll activities, a little activity we're going to do in a bit here. So I hope you guys have a great time learning some great gems about time management, task management, time efficiency, all those good stuff like that. As we go through the presentation, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the Q&A section of Event Mobi, and then we'll try to get some at the end here at the time that we have available. Okay, let's get to it. So I'm kind of a sci-fi nerd here, so this was my first little reference here to the movie The Matrix. If most of you guys hopefully would have seen that or recognize this picture. So imagine taking a pill and magically transporting yourself into that world in which you have more time. Wouldn't that just be amazing? Well, wake up, Neo. Until that pill actually exists, imagine the next best thing. And that is learning organization and prioritization strategies that it can incorporate into your busy lives and improve the efficiency, productivity, stress management, and the like. So that is what we hope to achieve, and that is what we want to achieve in our lives, to be stress-free. So let's look at the course objectives here. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to define time management, be able to describe the importance of time management, your role and the growth of your role within Quora, be able to explain what the Juggling Cone is as it relates to handling multiple tasks and projects, be able to complete a brain clearing activity or a brain dump activity, be able to create some Outlook organization folders that have rules attached to them, describing how the brain functions best and how that relates to having innovative thought. And that's what this whole conference has been about today. And then be able to explain the benefits of time management using our Delta. All right, so let's go into what is time management. So time management, the definition is the ability to use one's time effectively or productively, and obviously as we relate this to work here within Quora. This includes goal setting, prioritization techniques, self-awareness techniques, focus, self-motivation, decision-making, many factors that are involved in this. So then we pose this question: if we do well, great. But if we don't do well, what is the risk that we run when we're not managing our time? And ultimately, as we've heard in other talks, and John Eads actually referenced it in his talk today, it can lead to burnout. It can be leading to that feeling of being overwhelmed when you're fully stressed and have too much on your plate, or that feeling of having too much on your plate. It'll negatively interact with you emotionally. It'll cause you to interact negatively with your coworkers, with your patients perhaps. And then even in your personal life, it can cause negative interactions with family members, friends, spouses, significant others. So it can really cause a lot of damage when you're overwhelmed or when you're stressed by these things and when you don't do this well. All right. So we're going to start out with first of our poll questions here. But before we do, this is a quote that I took from Craig Rochelle. He has a leadership podcast, fantastic leadership podcast. If you haven't had a chance to look at it or listen to it, I highly recommend it. And he did one on the 4 tiers of efficiency. And he wrote in this quote, he wrote, "If we're always working on what's urgent, we'll never get to what's important." I want you to think about that because it's really powerful. And it definitely goes a long way to the importance of time efficiency. So if you look at this gentleman here, he looks a little scatterbrained. He's got a lot going on in his mind. He's looking at his face, definitely doesn't look like he's very happy with it. He's having a tough time. So I want you to think about our poll question here and answer the poll question for me. How many of you feel like this guy, or maybe have felt like this guy in the past, overwhelmed and quite possibly with headaches, as it looks like he does have, trying to organize your times, trying to organize all the tasks that you have to do for each day or each week? So I just want to give you a few seconds to go ahead and answer in the poll question, and then Katie will kind of monitor that, and we can see what the overwhelming majority of people are saying.
All right, Brian, it looks like you are getting an overwhelming number of yeses, sitting at about 90% right now.
Yeah. So as I suspected, yeah. So again, I've been there before. I know a lot of us have been there before. It's tough to feel overwhelmed like this and stressed out and burnt out. So, and then we have to keep in mind there is only 24 hours in the day, and that's 1,444 minutes and 86,400 seconds. So maybe that last number seems like it's a great amount of time, but we all know the time flies during the day, and we always wish we had more of it. And unfortunately, we cannot squeeze more water from a rock. You cannot make more time in a day as much as we would want to. So it's really about using that time wisely and efficiently. All right. So one of the things that we're going to talk about next here is the Juggling Cone. And this was actually taken from another podcast that I really enjoy, the Manager's Tool podcast. I highly recommend that one as well. And he actually had posed this conceptualization that I'll describe to you guys and try to describe to you guys here. So when we're juggling tasks and we're juggling projects, there's only a certain amount of things that we can continue to juggle at one time. Sometimes we may feel like we're juggling chainsaws and it's chaotic and it's scary and it's risky. And I don't want you guys to be thinking in those terms. I want you to be able to focus on the best way to juggle those tasks and do it well and efficiently. And so that's kind of where this koan comes in. So I'm going to describe that to you here. So imagine that you're juggling 20 different balls. And those balls represent projects or tasks or things that you need to accomplish through the day. 5 of those tasks or 5 of those balls are big balls. They're the most important things of your day, and you've got to keep working on them. They're big projects that you're working on. And then let's say roughly 15 of those balls or 15 of those projects are also in the juggle that you're juggling, 20 total. And then your direct supervisor comes to you and has a new project that they want you to work on, something that can really help Cora grow or something that can really help you grow as well. So you definitely don't want to turn that project away. You can't. It's your direct supervisor. So you're going to have to start juggling that new big ball. But in order for you to take on that new big ball, you're going to have to take some of your small balls and do something with it. You're not going to be able to juggle that extra ball without doing that. And that magical thing is delegation. You have to be able to delegate well in order to take on that new big ball and start juggling that new project to help yourself. All right, so a couple of those smaller balls are now going to be distributed down to probably your direct reports, okay? So you're delegating to them. In order for them to start juggling that ball, they need to take on that new big ball that you're giving them and take a few of the small balls that were in their juggling and distribute it down just alike to the next direct report below them, okay? So remember, it's not just dumping something on somebody's lap. That's not the way we want to do things. We want to be able to find the art of delegation, right? We want to be able to recognize that this is an opportunity for whoever you're delegating it to grow themselves. And I'll consider at the same time, it's an opportunity for you to grow by delegating that project to them. So you can't just dump it on their plate. You have to give them the tools, the resources, the knowledge to be successful, but it will stretch them and it will make them better, and at the same time, it will help the company grow better as well. So this kind of cascade effect of the balls kind of being distributed down through delegation is kind of what this juggling koan refers to. And just keep in mind that that small ball that you're dropping down and delegating down to your next direct report, it's going to become one of their new big balls, just like you were given a new big ball. So just understand that that is a new big project. They can't say no to that. They want to find a stretch and grow and be more innovative within the company as well. So that's the juggling koan in a nutshell. I know it's kind of a long-winded description of what this entails. I highly encourage you to reach out to me. I'll give you my email and my phone number at the end of the presentation. If you want to discuss that more, I'm always game to talk about that if you have questions for sure as well. So let's talk about what is the brain best used for, all right? So as this picture kind of shows, this is that holy water bucket here. The brain is not best used for storage of memory or storage of things. It's used for creation of ideas, creation of innovative thought. And when we oftentimes ask it to store, we're clogging up our brain, and it's not going to do a good job with it. It's going to end up with all these holy buckets with water spilling out all over the place, and you're not going to be able to retain that information, okay? So that kind of leads me up to what we're going to do here in our first activity. This is our brain clearing activity, all right? It's time for a brain dump, all right? We're going to grab a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen here, and you're going to write down everything, big or small, that you're trying to hold on to, that you're trying to retain, that's taking up space in your brain. Any of those could do, would do, should do items that you're trying to hold on to, that to-do list, professional, personal, you got a honey-do list, put it in there. Professional items, put it in there. Let's clean it out so that we can then organize and prioritize those items, okay? So we're going to do 3 minutes here, and I want you to just kind of take that paper and just start writing. Try to recall as much as you can and put it to paper so that we don't have to ask our brain to try to remember it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to have Katie put 3 minutes on, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little debrief after this, okay?
Okay, everyone, we've got about 30 seconds left, so start wrapping up the brain clearing.
All right. So let's go ahead and let's start our debrief here. I hope everybody had a chance to do this activity. So I want you guys, if you have a minute, so let's go ahead and start sharing in the chat box now, and Katie will kind of read off some of the comments here. What were your initial thoughts of this activity? Was it easy? Was it hard? Did you find that you just started writing a ton of stuff down? Do you feel relieved from doing this? Just let me know your thoughts from this initial try at this.
Brian, it looks like you got a lot of people talking about how long their list is and how hard it is to check things off, that the list is ever growing. But sounds like people have a lot to dump.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the truth. Look at all those things that you guys were trying to remember, that you guys were trying to store and stuff into our memory bank, and it's not so easy to do that. You're going to feel relief. Your brain is going to feel relief to not have to store all that in memory, to have it somewhere that you can then use it and make use of it. So remember that initially these can be hard. Doing these brain dump exercises are not easy, especially in the first couple times. That's that holy bucket idea, trying to recall stuff that you were storing in your memory. It doesn't go as well as we want it to. But I promise you, if you make this a weekly plan or even a twice-a-week plan, you're going to start to feel better, and it will be easier for you to make these to-do lists or these brain dump lists a lot easier. So then we think about what is the benefit to using our brain for avoiding using our brain as a storage device. And we've talked about that. It frees us up for creative thought and for innovative thought. It allows us to contribute more to our teams, to our committees, to our projects that we're working on. It allows us to see that bigger picture that we always try to achieve. It brings undistracted and laser focus to our problems that are in our clinics, in our regions, and that will make us more effective. But you have to organize it. You can't just take a long list that looks like a laundry list and be able to expect yourself to do anything productive with it. So you have to start to organize it. And organization is essential for you to be able to utilize it. And you want to organize it by context. That might be a really good starting spot. So context, for example, maybe these 4 items on your list are all phone calls. Let's group them together, and these are going to be your phone call category. Maybe these couple things are errands that you have to run in your personal life, or later on today, or later this week. Maybe these things are things that are for home, and these are the list of items that are for you to do at work. Maybe you're in school and you have assignments that you have to complete, and that's a different category. So try to get them into context and pile them together, and then try to create some action words for every item that's on your list. That'll just make it easier for you to have some clarity within your list. So some examples: I have to write this report, or I have to print out this project, or I have to make this phone call. Those are just some examples, but try to create that action word for each one of the items on your brain dump so that you'll be able to kind of classify that a little bit more and you'll get more out of it. Okay. All right, so let's go into another poll question here. You should be able to scroll on your event Mobi to the second poll question here. I love this image here of the inbox with the 32,000 plus inbox emails here, or this workspace. And some of you probably are cringing right now, and looking at that workspace might get you spinning and give a headache right there. So let's go to the poll here. How many of you at one point or another have had an inbox that looks like this, or maybe a workspace that looks like this? Let's take a couple seconds and go ahead and answer that poll, and then Katie, you can see what we've got going on.
All right, Brian. Again, this one's a little bit more broken up than the last one, but it looks like you've got a lot of yeses, about 69% yes.
Yeah. I think more than not, we have been there at one point, or we've let ourselves get a little out of control in terms of organization and time management, and that leads to stress, and that leads to the headaches that we were talking about in our first poll question. So, and I think a lot of it comes down to we just have too many platforms to try to keep everything organized. All right, so we've got our phones, we've got multiple phones for many of us. All right, we've got our laptops, our tablets, we've got computers, we've got our agenda books. All right, we've got our sticky note craziness, right? Some of us are heavy users of sticky notes. All right, we've got our papers, hard copies of papers we printed out, and they're piling up on us, right? So we have our good old-fashioned hand. It still works well, although, hopefully it's losing its oomph here. But we've got too many platforms. We've got a calendar that's going crazy with stuff on it. Or the good old-fashioned file cabinet. I do think we still have a few of those in our clinics around somewhere. But in order for us to really be able to organize our time and be able to manage our time better, it's best to pick 1 or 2 platforms to focus on, to be your main platform. All right, so whether that be your work cell phone and maybe your Outlook or your computer, your work computer, but pick the 1 or 2 that you want to choose and then stick to it. And so sticking to it doesn't mean that you can't use a sticky note ever. That's not what I'm saying to you guys. If you have a sticky note and you need to use a sticky note, use the sticky note. What I'm suggesting is that later on, at some point, take that information from your sticky note and incorporate it into your work phone or incorporate it into your computer Outlook program. That'll just keep things easier for you to manage. You won't have to worry about a bunch of things. You won't have to worry about that person's workplace desk that was in the prior slide getting out of hand. All right? You can use your calendar. You can use your agenda book. Just try to take that information and incorporate it into one or two chosen platforms that you have. It'll just make your life easier and stress-free. All right? So if you have your to-do list and you're making a to-do list on a sticky note or on your agenda book, that's fine, but choose an Outlook, or choose a program or a platform that has a list management feature to it. So again, there's Outlook is the one that we often use the most. There's Google Tasks, there's Apple Reminders, just whatever works for you. There's Rocketbook that's out there, and then import that brain dump, import that to-do list onto those platforms so that you can work with it and organize it and provide clarity to it to use it to your advantage. Okay. So let's talk about Outlook organization, because obviously within our company, Outlook is so heavily prevalent and used, and we want to be able to kind of make the most of it and not get overwhelmed. Does a full inbox of emails overwhelm you? A lot of people do. And I know that there are some of us out there that will leave for an hour and come back and have hundreds of emails in their inbox, and it can be very overwhelming, let alone you go away for a couple of days and come back and you have thousands. It's hard for that. And so it's really about organization. And organization can be really easy if you can create some folders to allow you a better ability to review your emails efficiently and easily. And so I'm going to give you some examples of those folders that I've used, but one of the things that I want you to kind of look to is in the agenda for this meeting and this session today, I created a flow sheet that gives you a step-by-step guide on creating rules for Outlook, to create a folder first, and then to create a rule that's attached to it. And what is creating a rule? So creating a rule is basically a way for the system in Outlook to automatically send an email that's sent from a certain email sender. It'll go right into that folder if you create a rule for that. So I've given you a flow sheet that gives you that step-by-step guide in order to create any rule for any folder that you want. So a great example, if you're on an eFax for one of your clinics that you run, for example, or with one of your groups of people, and you don't want to constantly get hundreds of those eFaxes all day long and just clog up your inbox. If you create a folder for that clinic, let's just say, and you create a rule that has all those eFaxes going right into that folder, it'll just make your life easier. You'll be able to access those when and if you need to from that folder, but they won't clog up and create hundreds of emails in your active inbox, okay? So review that flow sheet, use it to whatever you want. If you have questions as you're trying to do those folder creations and those rule creations, definitely be able to reach out to me as well, and I'll be able to help you with that, okay? So some examples of those folder creations, these are some that I've used in my Outlook. To do soon, something that's on the horizon. A call back soon, so that would be more reference to something that requires me to call that person from that email. The 2 minutes or less folder, really useful tool, because you don't always have a long amount of time. Most of us don't have a long amount of time to sit and dedicate to a longer activity or a longer project or a longer response. But if you know an item's just going to take a quick response or it won't take too much time, put it into that folder so that you know when you have that small window of time, you can go to that folder and get those couple things done. Or controversially, you have your longer response folder. You've got folders for waiting on someone else. Maybe it's a group project and you need something before you can do your part. Or then your project name or the committee. So if you're in a committee or if you're in a project that you're working on, create a folder for it so that anytime you have an email that references that project, you can just send it right to it and then keep it all nicely organized, okay? So we're trying to create that stress-free zone, right? You have to prioritize when you're looking through your emails. And my best suggestion to you is not to do the temptation, which is to start at the bottom of your inbox, of your email inbox, the one that was the last one that you reviewed, and going all the way up to the top. It's going to be a cumbersome effect. It's going to create inefficiency. My suggestion is to actually start at the top of your email thread, go from the most recent, and then work your way down. And really what this does is it avoids the ability for you to respond to an email that's already been responded to by multiple people in the same thread, for example. We get a lot of those emails within our company, and it's kind of inefficient for you to respond to an email that was already responded to by 5 or 6 other people, and now you're responding with old information or maybe something that was already solved. If it was already solved, then you don't want to have to respond to it and take time out of your day to do that. So start at the top of your list and then work your way back down, okay? Make a decision right away. So as you're going through your email, don't come back to it in a little bit or reread it again a little bit later. As you read it the first time, as you're working away from the top to the bottom, take that email and put it into the folder or decide what you're going to do with it. It may be that it's trash. You didn't need it. It was just something you read or you didn't even need it or you just deleted it. Perfect. Maybe it's something you need to put into a folder and categorize it, and that way you can get back to it in the appropriate time. Okay, so make a decision and stick to it. Okay, then go back to your emails based on that level of importance. What's the mission critical item? What's urgent? What's something that you don't need to get to? What's something that maybe you're going to want to delegate to somebody else instead? And then you also want to look at how much time you have. So if you don't have a lot of time, if you've got patients that are waiting for you, or if you're on a small break here, you don't want to get yourself into a project or an email that's going to take too much out of your time, and you're not going to be able to finish it thoroughly, or you're going to rush through it. So look at what time you have and then decide what items you're going to go through based off of your folders and your rules there. So, okay. Organizing and prioritizing your emails will increase your productivity, and then it will lower your stress, and that is a beautiful thing. Okay. So let's go ahead and think about the delta. This is our patient-employee organization delta that we're referring to here. So I want you guys to try to share in the chat box, thinking about all these time management strategies and everything we've been talking about. How can improving our time management skills or our task efficiency, how can that help our patients? How can that help us as employees? And then how can it help our organization as a whole? So Katie, as you start to see people type that in, just share with me some of the things that are popping out. It doesn't have to be in any order, Sam. Patient-employee organization. We worked on this all through the year, so we've had plenty of practice with our Delta application.
Yeah, Brian, I think for the organization, is that something that we get more results for our employees? And love the top-down approach is one of the comments that came up for that.
Absolutely. Within the organization, we've got that longevity. When you're doing well with time management, you've got that engaged employee workplace. You're going to have better results from your patients, from your employees. You got higher level innovative thought process that we've been talking about all conference long here today, right? How about for the employee or for the patients?
Yeah, it looks like you've got somebody who says that it allows you to give your best selves to all sides of the Delta. More time to spend developing the team. Less stress.
Yeah, there you go. That's a huge one. I mean, we've been talking about that a lot in today's presentation. For the employee side of it, right? Your stress relief is so vitally important, especially with this year and with COVID. Burnout has been so high, and it's just, when you're doing well with this and you take the time to do task management, time management, you're going to have better job satisfaction, right? How about with our patients? What do our patients get from this? What do they gain from us doing well with this?
Like less time on the emails is more time with patients. Focus on the task at hand allows you to be more present.
Absolutely. That presence is so vitally important to providing the exceptional patient experience that we've been striving for, right? So when we're de-stressed, when we have everything organized, when we're not so worried about all these things that we're having on our plate, we can give more thought to our patients, just like you guys are saying. We can give more thought to their plan of cares. We can be more creative within their plan of cares, or help our other team workers, our other coworkers with their plan of care challenges on challenging patients. So it really does help all three sides of the Delta. So thank you guys for sharing some of the ideas with that. I do want to share some of the additional time management resources that are out there. There's a ton of them. This list is nowhere near comprehensive, but these are some of the ones that have stuck to me. The Getting Things Done course from Vital Sparks is a great course. Highly recommend that. This book, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, it's a great book. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey, very popular. The Checklist Manifesto from Atul Gawande. The Art of Delegation is a great book. Charles Malone wrote that one. And then these podcasts here at the end, these were ones I referenced in my presentation today. The Manager's Tool podcast, that's from Mark Hortzman. There's some great materials in there for up-and-coming leaders, leaders that want to develop themselves. Definitely, I would suggest that one. And then the Craig Rochelle Leadership podcast has tremendous information on it. Great podcast and very bite-sized, 20-minute sessions, so they're really easily listenable in your car if you're using the car for that. All right, so let's review some of the objectives here, and let's kind of see what we've gotten so far. We defined time management. We described its importance to time management in your growth. We explained the juggling cone as it related to multitasking. It relates to delegation. We did that brain clearing activity today, and that should hopefully help you. If you can try to take that away and use that here in the future, it will really help you with your innovative thought. We worked on creating organization folders, and we talked about the value of that. And you have your step-by-step guide now that will help you do that. You described how the brain function works best and how that relates to us having innovative thoughts. And then we explained the benefits of time management within that Delta mindset that we were talking about, okay? So as we get into some time here for question and answer, I do want to thank you guys for coming into this session. I know we're getting into the late afternoon, and I appreciate everybody engaging in the chat box. I appreciate Katie helping us out with that, and Emily and her team for everything they've done to put this amazing conference together. I will provide you all my information and contact information, and I highly recommend you reach out to me if you have questions or if you need more suggestions, if you're running into trouble. And then I would also be remiss to not plug the next tier CLU workshop that we're creating on. That's actually Kat Bolduck and myself are working on an amazing workshop that will be done quarterly through the CLU, Do More with Your 24. If you like this material, if you want more, if you're eager to kind of develop these skills, I highly recommend you sign up for that first one coming up in March. So with that, I will definitely open the floor. Just remember, I'm in the trenches like you guys every day. I treat in the clinic, and I do a lot of other projects on the side. So finding the time for everything and not turning away opportunity for growth is I'm right there with you. So if there's any questions that are coming up, definitely, Katie, let's share.
All right, Brian. Well, that was a great presentation. You did an awesome job, and I think time management is something that is always relevant. You got lots of questions here. I'll start with the top here. How do you try not to be the all-in-one person when you're the only full-time staff member at your clinic?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, because when you are the full-time staff member, you feel like you have to put it all on your shoulders. I think the biggest thing is there's resources everywhere, right? Just because in your clinic you are the only one does not mean that you can't pull on your team, and your team is always going to be available for you. So I pull on my team constantly. I've been there. I was the sole clinician for many years in my clinic here in West Palm, and I still always constantly pulled on my supervisors, my clinicians that were brought on from other clinics that we were sharing as kind of per diem staff and float staff for a long time. And look, the biggest thing to take away from this is that when you're giving them things, when you're delegating things for them to do to help share the load, it's not just sharing the load, it's helping them develop. So make sure you give that opportunity to them to expand their skill set to help them grow individually. And if you present it the right way, and not just that you're dumping this task on, but you're giving them opportunity for growth, then it will be taken in the positive light that we want it to be taken, as an opportunity to expand and grow.
Yeah, great points. Another one is, do you have any other tips to save time, just like the rule for Outlook? Yeah, I mean,
so the rules for Outlook are definitely one that I use pretty much every day. That this helps grouping of emails that you don't need to read through a bunch of them on. Just again, the big tip of starting from the top and working your way down just saves on a lot of headaches and time and frustration when you spend 5 or 10 minutes responding to an email that then you realize was already responded to or was already taken care of by somebody else. So that's a really effective strategy that I use a lot of as well.
Awesome. And then how do you define what a balanced life looks like to you from a time standpoint?
You know, it's never easy to sit there and define what balance is. Balance is really a feeling. It's your emotions. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling burnt out, like we talked about earlier, then I would ask you to question whether or not you're having that balance, whether or not you're doing this time management skill set the right. We talked about in the very beginning of the presentation, what are the risks that we run when we're not doing well with this, and that is stress, unbalanced lifestyle, the feeling of burnt out, those headaches that we get. So if any of you are feeling those things, and this year it's really been taking a forefront with COVID and burnout from COVID, I would ask you to really be reflective on that. And I really want you also to, in your O3s, in your one-on-ones with your teams, be understanding that these guys are burnt out. Your team is burnt out. So if you're feeling vibes of frustration, of stress, of being burnt out, they might be having trouble managing their time. And for you, your bandwidth on what time management might be is completely different than what your team might have, what each of a member of your teams might have. So spend the time to communicate with them. Spend the time to actually listen to what they're saying and how they're saying it. That way you can be really responsive and you can share some of these tips from today with them, and hopefully that will give them a whole team engagement will greatly improve from that.
And Brian, on that same standpoint, taking that a little bit more expanded, how does that apply in your personal life as well? How do you balance that business and the personal side on time management?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I was on John Eves' call in the last session, and he really said it well. When you're somewhere, be there, right? So he referred to when you're at work, be there, be present. When you're working on your email review, be there, present. But when you're at home, be there, be present. If you're going to go out to be with your family, and be with your family. I really try to, when I get home from work, I always try to spend a little time with my family. I dedicate the time to my kids. I help them with the bath and the bedtime routine. I dedicate the time to sitting at the table and have a family dinner whenever I can. And again, it's never going to be easy, but you have to constantly want that. You have to constantly want to strive for it and better yourself with skills like we've been talking about. In order to find that balance. And there may be days and there may be weeks and there may be months where you're not as good as the last month with it. It's okay. It's going to happen. It's going to happen with everything that we're trying to do and accomplish within our company as well as within our personal lives. And it doesn't mean that tomorrow can't be another day. That tomorrow you can't go home and make a commitment. Tonight you can't go home and make a commitment that, hey, I'm gonna spend some time where I'm really focused on my family, or I'm gonna make that phone call to my parents. I'm not so good with that, but
Yeah, that's excellent, Ryan. One thing that keeps coming up here is we've got several questions on this, is how do you delegate so that they feel this is an opportunity for them rather than a dump of less important tasks?
Yeah. Well, remember what we talked about with that juggling cone, right? So that small ball for you, it's still an essential task. It's still an important task. And so when it comes to that person that you're delegating it to, it becomes their big ball. It is going to be a massive project that they have to now start to find a way to juggle. You can't just dump that on them. The best way to start that process is to first learn your people, get to know them, communicate with them, build trust with them. O3s are my most effective way to do that. I've been very passionate about having them consistently and making sure that they know that they can communicate with me and trust me. And so within that process, as I build their trust, I can know what their skills are. We need to know our people. We need to know what their strengths and our weaknesses are. And it's not just giving them something that they're good at. We want to make them better, and sometimes stretching them and putting them in positions where they're not necessarily going to be the most comfortable in is going to make them better in the long run. So helping to understand that process that's involved in that, and then sharing in the celebration afterwards once they've completed that amazing task that they didn't think that they can do in the beginning. So giving them support, giving them the coaching and the mentoring through that process, and then the positive feedback of the celebration at the end, because really takes it to the next level.
Kind of along those same lines, how do you delegate when there isn't anyone else on the team to take on those small balls?
Yeah, so delegation, especially within our company, we are this matrix organization that we are in committees that are on with people from other parts of the country, with other departments within our company. So delegation doesn't always have to be your direct subordinate, right, or your direct report, right? It can be somebody else. It can be even one of your direct supervisors. You just have to have the right kind of conversations and be able to communicate clearly with them about where we are, what we're trying to accomplish as a team, as a region, as a company, and just know that you're never alone, even if you're the only person in the clinic. All right, even if it's just you and one PSC, you've got opportunity to reach out to resources. You've got a team that surrounds you from other clinics. So make sure that you're fostering that and that you're pulling on those resources. Again, if they're not given an opportunity in that other clinic, for example, they may not ever grow themselves. So you're getting that opportunity for them. They're going to pass that to you, just like you're leaning on them as a resource. They're going to be able to lean on you as well, vice versa. So.
Awesome, Brian. That's some great information, and I think some really, really great points. Kind of finish this off here at the Q&A. Is there an email tip of the day you would recommend?
An email tip of the day, meaning like to use the email within the email system. Here's my tip of the day. I'll give you my tip of the day. Despite the biggest temptation, the first thing you want to do is to sit on your computer and check your emails, right? Everybody wants to. That's the first thing we want to do. I really caution you to do that. I would say don't do that. The first thing you want to do when you step into your clinic that day is not jump to your emails. It's going to get you stressed out and you're going to fall into that rabbit hole. Instead, go ahead and look at your calendar. Look at what's going on for the day. What are these opportunities that you have available for growth today, for this week? What is the challenge of the week? So every Monday, I do what's called a weekly review, and I look at what's coming up in this week ahead, and I say, what are the things that are going to be exciting for me, that are going to be growth opportunities for me? What are mission critical items I have to get done in that week? And I start there. And then from my weekly review, then I'll go into my email and I'll start with my sorting of my emails. So I guess if I can give you a tip, it would be that. To try to avoid the temptation to sit there and drown in emails, okay? So use these tips, use these rules, use these folders that I've given you. And like I said, I've given you here my contact. This is my email and my work cell phone. I highly encourage you to reach out to me. I appreciate all the feedback and the engagement through the presentation today. Our code word, our game code word, because we almost forgot that, it's TIME, T-I-M-E, all right? So, hey, if you want to type that in the chat box so they can see that. Again, I thank you guys for joining this session. I'm excited for our last session as a big group together. This has been a great conference, and I appreciate everybody.